The escalation of tensions between Iran and the United States and Israel erupted in late February this year and has led to many flights being cancelled across the Middle East region. And that means Singaporeans there have been stranded. A number have made it back home on special repatriation flights, thanks to the Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Today joining us are two Singaporeans who were recently repatriated from the Middle East amidst the conflict.
Some people who are watching this may be wondering, why are we so emotional about things?
Yeah.
What is there to be emotional about?
Right.
Not that we are trying to exaggerate, but having gone through it, it's very different. Hey everybody, I'm Sammy. I was in the Middle East for work and I was due to fly back on 1st of March, which was just one day after the conflict started.
And you flew there just a couple of days before
Yes,
that?
it was just a layover flight, in fact. So I was there just to clear up some work for one day and I hope to just fly back the next day, and things happened. Just a couple of hours after I landed.
Wow. And how about you?
My name is Nisar Keshwani. I've been in Doha, Qatar for about just over two years. So March is my sort of 25th month. I'm there with my wife and two kids. So I work in a university there, and my kids study, and basically life is based in Doha.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about the point when tension started and you started to realize that, this is getting a little bit serious. Where were you guys?
I remember very clearly I was having my lunch that day at Dubai Mall. So I was in Dubai Mall, enjoying a good lunch. There was a lot
Biggest
of people.
mall. Biggest mall.
It's Saturday.
Right.
And then I look at my phone and, hey, so there's a Straits Times alert. SQ's cancels flight to Dubai. Like, okay, I'm on Emirates, so I'm fine. This is just... So then the next moment, my family texted me and said that, hey, SQ has cancelled flights from to and from Dubai, and is your flight going to fly tomorrow? So then I said, I think so. So at that point, life was still very normal in Dubai Mall. There wasn't... We couldn't hear any interceptions, missiles, drones, etc. Then when we reached back the hotel, then I started to Google a bit more news, and that's I realized that airspace was closed, flights were being cancelled, postponed, etc., etc. So started to really keep on track of news, and that's where the reality starts to set in, that things are not normal. Things are starting to happen.
My case, I guess we have a bit more experience in a sense that this is the third such incident we've encountered, but of course this one is kind of long scale. I guess the experience I have is that because I handle university communications, I'm part of the team that conveys it to the university community.
Right.
So in our case, we had sensed that maybe something is brewing. So we had the day before already sent our community home, work from home. It's called shelter in place. So basically stay in your place of residence. Right. So we knew that maybe something is happening, but because of the preparedness, of course you're prepared, but you don't know what's going to happen. So when the kind of the instability started to happen, we were fortunately at home, and we were prepared, so stay in a sheltered space, stay away from windows, food supply, etc. We were all kind of ready, being Singaporean, and I think everybody else was the same. So when the first few hit, it was quite a shock.
Right.
The previous one, I actually had been driving and I saw it myself. This was in June last year.
Oh, wow.
So it was, basically just remaining calm, being assured that you're in your place of residence. The action is, kilometers away. So that's what happened. And then reassuring the kids, ourselves, that, okay, we are fine. Nobody's injured, etc.
Sammy, you shared just now about when you were at the Abu Dhabi airport.
Yes.
And the military was ushering you. Can you just share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so eventually I MFA, so all this calm was also very assisted because we had we registered with MFA. MFA, as much as to their best ability, kept us updated on the latest status. And one Wednesday morning, I got an email from MFA saying that there is a flight flying out from Abu Dhabi. So
And this is when you're in Doha, right?
when I was in Dubai.
Dubai, sorry.
Dubai,
yeah.
correct. So I was, as much as I don't want to travel by land or in car because you don't know what's happening in over your heads, but I was more confident to make the trip to Abu Dhabi because it's about 80 minutes car ride. So the moment I reached Abu Dhabi, actually my flight was supposed to be on Thursday morning, but I just went to the airport directly to just want to hopefully can get a reconfirmation that my flight is almost going to fly. I mean, there's no 100% at any point in time. And the moment I reached the airport, I was shooed in a way, I don't better word. People were telling me, the airport staff, move. Like, I thought there was some big shot coming to check in, but I was wrong. So they were showing us beyond the immigrations, which we have not even checked in, so to a safe place. And the army was communicating on their phones, walkie-talkie, and about 20 minutes later, they released us to normal positions. That's when I knew that, I think it's not a VIP checking in. There was something coming towards the direction of the airport.
At least they're expecting it, right?
And they already knew it was coming and they were trying to intercept it, and they could only release us when it's successfully intercepted.
Okay.
But amazing. Nobody was running, nobody was shouting, everyone was extremely calm. They must have done this many times in a day. I salute them.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that. Okay, you knew you were going to get out, like, because home is here, right? You wanted to come back, but Nisa, when was that moment for you that because you spent two years there, and you're even saying you still know some Singaporeans who are still there, who have been there longer, and they're kind of, this is kind of where we are gonna. We've put roots down. We're kind of just gonna hang in there until. So when was that moment for you that you decided?
So in our case, what was kind of occurring was that, we're there for the long haul, right? So optimistic that this is just a temporary situation. We were supposed to travel because this is the Hari Raya break.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so we got alerts from multiple ways where flights, the airspace, etc. was cancelled. So for us, we were kind of two-minded. Okay, we are supposed to travel, and then the situation happened. What do we do? So thankfully, we were in contact with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We were getting very up to minute sort of information.
Right.
So when the situation was escalating and the ministry alerted us that hey, we are going to arrange for land transfer, in our case from Doha to Riyadh, which is an 8-hour drive.
Yeah.
So we were still thinking about, okay, should we take this opportunity up? Because Riyadh, Doha is home, it's safe, we have space, we have shelter. Similar like you being exposed, on the road for 8-10 hours, not sure what will happen.
Yeah.
And then once we get to Riyadh, what do we do? Because check into a hotel, whatever, but it's a foreign space. And then from Riyadh, how do we get home to Singapore or elsewhere? Because even from there, the flights were kind of shaky. So we managed to get a ticket, kind of pretty long-winded route, Riyadh to Jeddah to Kuala Lumpur, and then Kuala Lumpur to Singapore by land. So that's when we felt, okay, that's there's a route back. And we were also actually most concerned about the kids because, our kids are 10 and 12. So we felt that, okay, how long do we put them through this? Although when you ask them, they'll say that they were calmer than us, in true Singapore style. So that was kind of the trigger when the ministry said, when MFA said that we are going to do this land transfer. So we thought, okay, let's take it up, because at least we know we will have some sort of diplomatic coverage or support from the embassy. And then the following day, we en route we found out that there's a RSAF plane that is being arranged here.
Oh, how did you find that out? Did they also?
They also let us
Okay.
know, but then it was kind of a staggered piece of communication. So they said that we are arranging for flight transfers. Are you interested? Please let us know. So at least they have a sense of numbers,
Right.
etc.
Right.
And then it happened very quickly. For us quickly, but I'm sure in the back end the government had to do a lot of work. With the authorities as well as all the governments, because we have to understand that flying out. It's not just one country; it's the whole GCC.
Right.
And now with the news, etc., we know that there were many conversations in the back end to make this happen.
Yeah.
Right.
How was the flight home? I mean, you wrote a
Yeah, I
column
was
in
gonna say
Straits
that.
Times, welcome,
Yes.
welcome home.
Yeah.
Sammy, maybe we'll start with
Yeah.
you. How was the flight back home?
Yeah.
Getting into a flight that's actually secured. It's not cancelled anymore.
Yeah.
You can finally sit on the plane. What was that feeling like?
So mine was a commercial flight.
Yeah.
So there's different stages to the emotions. Whether first we can't wait to board. That means it's boarding on time.
Right.
Then after we board, can we successfully clear airspace and fly off?
Yes.
So there were different emotions. And so this is the first time I actually paid attention to the flight path. I looked at the flight path and knew that I had to probably fly about 1.5 to 2 hours so that I could get out of the entire GCC.
Right.
And after you clear Oman, that's when you're technically safer. So I can't sleep on the flight, although we were all thoroughly exhausted, I'm very sure. So we keep watching the flight path, and then once it cleared out to a safety area, I totally knocked out for 2 hours.
Right.
And that's also the amazing part when I clear out of that safety zone. I had some Wi-Fi already, and my mom took a photo back in Singapore. She took a rainbow that just appeared outside the window after a rain in Singapore. That
Right,
shows
right.
good signs. That shows good blessings.
What a moment of relief.
Yeah, and then of course when
we
we finally
Yeah.
landed into Singapore, it's just exhaustion setting into place, and very, very glad to
Right.
get home and you see your family awaiting you outside. It's great to
right.
be home. It's great.
So was Celine waiting for you outside?
Yeah, she was.
Okay.
She was waiting for me outside, and she cried. She
Oh,
was so
wow.
emotional.
She
She
really cried.
just
Oh,
cried, and then
wow.
I
Okay.
couldn't hold back as well. I could have
Okay.
cried harder because I had so much emotions in here, right? Like I was just holding back, thinking that I shouldn't let them worry that if I cried so much, they will know that I was so scared.
You're probably also running on a lot of adrenaline as well, I can
Yeah.
imagine.
A lot. I
Yeah.
think I took a couple of days to catch back on my sleep.
Right.
Nisar, your flight was different. It was not a commercial flight. It was the
Yeah.
RSAF flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess a similar range of emotions. All throughout uncertainty until landing, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen. So in our case, first, the land transfer, is it happening? Not, are we going to get across? Then once we're across, is there a flight? When is the flight? Are we able to get a seat on the flight? So, similar to ordinary travel, I guess, but this one is kind of quite different. So I think the uncertainty was all the way up to the point where I guess on the plane and taking off. But what was amazing was the comfort. The embassy staff. The ambassador was on the ride with us to the border. When we crossed the border, the Riyadh embassy staff were in the bus with us. So that security was, I would say, amazing. When we were boarding, the RSAF staff who were there in their uniform, welcoming us, bringing us through the protocols, etc. So I think that was kind of emotional moment.
Yeah.
Do you think you're getting emotional at that point? And at this point, we're also feeling it. But it's at the strangest moment,
Yes.
right? That you're feeling this because you're not entirely safe yet.
Yes.
But you see something that's familiar,
That's right.
right? And then you start to feel this overwhelming surge of like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, there is a chance for being safe,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But that's just a very, very minimalistic way to reason that out, right? But tell us more, because it just doesn't stop there, right? It just got more emotional for you and your wife on the plane.
Yes. So in our case, there was no Wi-Fi, etc. So I mean, along the way, actually, we're very fortunate to be connected. So friends, family. I mean, the number of messages we were getting, was phenomenal and very reassuring. So when we boarded, as I wrote in my piece, actually it was a thank you note to the ministry, but I didn't expect that it will go to so many places. So as we wrote, when the pilot start, kind of in the standard safety messaging, the first line was "Welcome home." It was at that point that you kind of. I guess we always the conventional way of thinking is that when you're on Singapore soil or in the comfort of family, etc. But for this experience, it was the kind of the shared fabric. The fact that all of us were from the same place, supported by the government personnel, etc. So it transcends physical geography, I would say. I think that's the key takeaway, for us. Yeah.
Definitely. Just being in that I mean, I can't imagine how it was to hear the word "Welcome home."
Welcome home,
and
right.
you mentioned in your column about people singing the national
Yeah.
anthem.
Yeah.
That would just be, I don't know, after going through all of that, I think that would
Yeah.
just
So did everyone join in? I imagine everyone joined in.
Well, I guess all of us were processing, right? I mean, I think up to the time landing, I'm still in touch with some of those who are already grounded here. I think, the emotions are strong, and we also have ties, right, to people back there who, are still going through, we cannot underestimate, what they are going through, right? So I think coming back to that moment, it kind of started off with because I've worked in different locations. Yeah, for me, on flight landing when people clap, etc. It's familiar but not yet unfamiliar, because I've kind of been on small planes flying through mountains, etc. Where you're not sure whether you'll get there, right? So your destiny lies in the hands of whoever's steering the ship or the plane, right? Yeah. So there was that high sense of emotion from everybody on the plane, and then somebody shouted "Majula," and I mean it's not a small plane, but it wasn't the entire plane, but there were pockets where I could hear sentences or parts of the anthem, and words we are familiar with, right? Majula, Majula Singapura, thank you, RSAF, those kind of language and sounds were kind of murmuring.
Right.
So that's when I felt like, wow, there's a connectedness to each person, whether we know them or not.
Right.
Personally.
Amazing. Yeah.
Oh my God, this is gonna get me emotional as well.
Yeah, I can barely even sing sometimes.
Yeah.
The National Day, when they sing the national anthem, I can't imagine being on.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being on a plane and like trying to just grasp for a hold of the emotions, right?
Sammy, so this whole experience, right? I mean, coming from, I can imagine this is one of the first few times that you've experienced something, maybe the first time that you've experienced something like this. How is it coming back, and what are the sort of takeaways, coming back to Singapore where it's relatively safer, stable? What were your thoughts?
A lot of thoughts over the past week. Honestly, like, sorry, very hard to. Because when Nisa was sharing just now, and then emotions were running in our minds, and because this past week I've met various people back to work. So some of them I shared that I was there, and I had different responses from people that I've been meeting for the past week. Some were very, very concerned. Are you okay? Are you physically, mentally recovered?
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. But there were a handful who were like, oh, you are there. Oh, okay, you are back.
great. That kind of thing, right?
Like,
The reaction
they are
isn't-
not that up to date
right.
with situations. I can't blame them. Not everybody is that up to date with things. Some people who are watching this may be wondering, why are we so emotional about things?
Yeah, yeah,
What is there to be emotional about?
right.
Not that we are trying to exaggerate, but having gone through it, it's very different.
Yeah.
You know, so I hope that through so many thoughts coming to my mind, and one thing I just hope to share more with people around me is how blessed we are, but at the same time, how prepared we should be.
Right.
You know, it's like we tend to get very complacent being in Singapore because we are so well protected. We have a system, we trust the system. We're in such a safety net that we often forget that how should we protect ourselves? How what should we do in terms of an emergency? So I've learned, like for myself, you know, when I go down to the hotel, I will make sure I have my passport and cash with me all the time, so that if any emergency, I started on day 3, which is maybe very late, to pack an emergency pack. That means if anything happens, I have this more emergency pack. There's some biscuits, there's some water, there's one set of clothes in there. Wow, I don't think I learned this anywhere in, maybe I forgot, I've learned it, but I didn't put it to my head in school. You know, like, what should I do in terms of an emergency? So when I was even on going to the airport, I had a separate luggage bag for the emergency pack in case that the luggage are all check-in and then the flights get cancelled again.
Right.
I have the emergency pack.
Right,
So
right.
I hope to share a lot more awareness about in crisis, what should we do? I mean, touch wood, we hope no crisis happen
Yeah.
here. But actually, after this crisis, I realized that the world is really very, very connected.
Yeah.
We are not far away from a crisis.
Not anymore.
We already see in our petrol prices, there will be probably some inflation in food products. We are not far. So we need to be prepared.
Which I guess brings us to our next question, right? I mean, do Singaporeans take our peace for granted? You know, I think like your response, like you said, some people at the office were like, "Oh, okay, you're back, great." They're not even, they can even be like oblivious to what's happening outside, and they're still safe. But you've lived there 2 years, right, in the Middle East, and you said this is like the 3rd time it's happened to you, right, as an attack. It's never really happened here in Singapore. This generation, our previous generation. Maybe you're talking about grandparents, great-grandparents' generation, where World War II, and that was the last thing, right? So how do you feel about, you know, Singapore and, you know, at least fellow Singaporeans who, do you think, you know, our peace here sometimes is like, you know, we don't think too much about it?
One of the things that me and my wife have been discussing, I mean, you know, generally, and I guess more so, is that is the power of the human mind, right? How we become so, actually we are super resilient, and we can adapt to where we are very easily. So when it's peacetime, you kind of, as we said, right, you take it, take it like, you know, this is the norm, you know, whatever happens, everything will be fine. And when you're in kind of conflict areas, you also become acclimatized, right? So you know that, okay, this is the trigger, this is the sound, this is what you need to do. I've spoken to people who, you know, from the region and beyond, who have grown up in these settings, and they share with us, okay, you know, we can tell the sound of a grenade, a missile, a smoke bomb, you know, so they know it to that level, right? So I guess that's when you realize how fortunate we are, right? The thing is that in today's world, we live in very fragile times, and the structure and the institutions are so important. And what can you do as an individual? I think it's very important we are up to date about what's happening in the world. We have to be very mindful because, I mean, us being in Singapore, we're in a small space. As you said, it's highly interconnected. You know, you throw a stone, you'll know at least 3 people who are wherever, you know, whether it's Middle East or Sudan or wherever else, right? So the world is very small. So what can we do? I feel that, you know, being sensitive to those around you is very critical. I've even met people who kind of joke about it. Oh, you managed to get on a RSAF plane, blah, blah. I mean, like, I don't know what to say. I didn't know how to respond. So I'm still very busy at work, handling the emergency comms, etc. So my connectedness to people has been mainly digitally. But it does puzzle me, some of the comments. But I'm just taking it that some people do not know how to react. And they make light of the situation, but not necessarily that they don't feel the same way. Maybe they have deep fears that they're not aware of. So I guess it's the responsibility of others, right, who are familiar to educate, to share. Like you don't have to be a minister to be mindful, caring, etc. What can we do? So in our own family setting, I mean, we have they call it the go bag, which is always prepared. Now you realize that, okay, 2 pairs of clothes is actually more than sufficient. A couple of biscuits, water, you kind of trickle down to the basics.
Yeah.
Right. So the fragility is, I think, the future. Resilience and adaptability is very important. And the ability to transcend barriers, borders, and geographies is also very important. So contextual understanding, cultural sensitivity. I think we are back to the basics. These are not basics, but these are the fundamentals, right? So the question is, what can you do when you are in a better situation to help those around you? I would say that.
Definitely. Especially at least for me, as a Gen Z who's never experienced any of this. The only thing that we know is total defense, right? Which we celebrated on 15th February. That's kind of the only thing that we know through simulations, but we've never had to go through anything like this, and hopefully we never have to. So I think it's exactly like what you said, being educated on it, being a bit more sensitive and all that kind of stuff.
And I also think, on a wider spectrum, all males in Singapore have to go through NS, right? And then I even have my sons. My sons are comparable to your kids' age. And I've already had, I think when the oldest turned 12, he asked, why do I have to do it? And I'm really scared. And I said, you don't have to be scared because, all of us have been through it. And honestly, we are safe, right? So we are. Then he's like, so why, right? And of course, the messaging has always been, because we need to be prepared and we need to be for any situation, right? And this is one of those situations, right? It's so specialized and so narrow, but you never know what might happen. But the great thing is to see that we have a prepared RSAF, SAF, who are ready to go out there and get everyone who needs to be or wants to return home, right? And I think it's changed. I'm kind of, at this age now, still very thankful that this system is in place. Although it's the same. When I was 18, I was like, I would have to go in NS. It's like, oh my goodness, wasting my time, etc., etc. But actually, it's not, because now, decades down the road, I realize that, because I am where I am, I can explain to my kids, look, this is why we're doing it, right? It's so important to be ready, right? And I mean, and we wonder why Singaporeans so kiasu, blah, 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 but this is exactly why. It's not the kiasu-ness. Maybe that's one thing that's coming out of this. It's not 100% positive, but the intention is correct. You want to be prepared. You don't want to be caught in a situation where you're like, oh no, we don't know what to do and we're just going to be sitting ducks, right? So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Is there anyone that you'd like to thank throughout this whole process? Maybe you could just, or any other last words that you'd like to say?
Yeah, really a lot of people who I made new friends during this journey. People whom I did not felt I was important to them, made an impact. They were very concerned. They text every day. Clients linked me to their contacts in Dubai. I made new friends in Dubai. We made our backup escape route. Of course, my colleagues in my company. So they were checking routes for me. They were praying for me. They went to whatever prayers they could for me. One of my colleagues asked me after I came back safely, have my vision in life changed? It's quite an interesting question.
Yeah.
I replied that actually I'm a person who is very optimistic and positive. And I've said I've not changed my vision. I choose to still believe in giving back to the community. But this time, this has reinforced what I do for many years. That means spreading good causes And ultimately, I hope that there will be more kindness in the community and people are content now. What the UAE people has also taught me is the kind of not kiasuness, not selfishness.
Yeah.
They are helping people, although they are afraid, like I said. I mean, in terms of the kiasu Singaporean, there are pros and there's two sides to
Yeah.
this. Kiasu means I want to make it back as soon as possible. I'm being kiasu. I want to protect my life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this kiasu means if in a crisis I don't go to the supermarket to sweep out all the groceries.
Yeah.
You know, I now I will be more balanced in terms of, hey, this is a crisis. Okay.
Now thinking about others, right?
Friends,
Yeah.
thinking about others.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
about myself
Yeah.
anymore.
I would say if we peel the layers, right, immediate family, right, my wife and kids who, we're there together, the family, our families, extended families, whether in Singapore and beyond. Friends, some people who don't know us reached out to check in on us, etc. I had a colleague messaging me saying that, hey, this has been announced here. Can you check? Can you get on the plane? Like it was so timely and strategic. Like almost by the hour that, hey, we just got this news. Counter check, do this, do that. So those things, I think, as an individual, were very helpful. I also feel that we need to peel off the layers. What religion you're from, or you ascribe to, the race, nationality, where you are born. All these things. Like, does it really matter?
And not to take the things that we do every day for granted, right?
Yeah,
That we can
absolutely.
wake up to do every day.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah.
Like being. I guess we're all very familiar with the context here. Going down to the market, having a cup of coffee, whatever. These are some simple, basic things we take for granted. But in the settings where we have just arrived from, the fact that you can walk out, go for a swim or take a bike ride. These are things that we shouldn't take for granted, as well as all the service staff. Even in those settings, the Uber driver dropped us at the embassy, and then he said, "Okay, good luck." Like these are very simple things.
Yeah.
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 It's these like little moments of human connection
Exactly.
that just remind you of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much
Yeah.
for being on the show today. And like
Yeah.
we're so happy that you're home and you're
thank you.
safe. I feel like today is such a reminder that these conflicts really affect real people just like you and me.
Yeah.
But amidst that, we still find moments of connection, compassion, I think most importantly, gratitude.
Yeah.
So thank you guys again
Yeah.
so much for being
Yeah.
here.
Thanks for being
Thank
here,
you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This was The Situation Report. We will see you guys on the next episode. Bye.